The Borrowed Badge by Johnson Davies. Chapter 1. Rain on 5th Street. The raindrops were as big as a butcher's thumb, each one hitching a ride down Los Angeles's dirty gutters. The night was a sad judgment on the city, hard, cold, and without sympathy or a give-a-damn. Homicide Detective Wade Cutter stood beneath a flickering street lamp on 5th and Alameda, the kind of corner where small treasures changed hands and lives got shorter. His trench coat clung to him like a second skin, soaked through and heavy with the weight of the rain. His hat-squad fedora was tilted low, shielding his eyes from the worst of the downpour. Old war wounds ached in the weather. Cutter cupped his hands and lit a lucky strike with a match that sputtered in the wind. The flame briefly illuminated a small scar that parted his right eyebrow, a reminder of a grazing bullet from Bastogne. Bastogne, a Belgium city where German and American soldiers had left the snow red with blood that claimed no nationality. He'd earned a silver star and a purple heart and saved his platoon from certain death. But ribboned medals didn't mean much when you were chasing killers through dark alleys. The Colt under his coat was snug against his ribs. Familiar, comforting. He hadn't drawn it in 3 weeks, which meant he was overdue. He checked his watch. 11:47 p.m. Benny. The squeal was late. Not unusual for a man who owed half the city money and the other half an invitation to his funeral. But tonight, Cutter had a feeling, the kind that crawled up his spine and whispered, "Don't turn your back." Across the street, a black sedan idled too long. No headlights, no movement, just the soft hum of an engine trying not to be noticed and a smoky tailpipe jinxing the setup. Cutter clocked it without turning his head. He'd learned that trick in the Ardennes, how to see without looking, how to listen without reacting. He took another drag from his cigarette and let the smoke curl around his thoughts. Benny had called the station 2 nights ago, voice shaking like the ice cubes at the bottom of a drunk's empty glass. Said he had something big, said people were dying, said it wasn't normal even for L.A. Cutter had heard that before, usually from cranks or junkies. But Benny wasn't either. He was a survivor. A rat, sure, but rats didn't lie about the size of the cat. To Benny, snitching was a business. A door creaked open down the alley. Cutter stepped back into the darkness, brushing the grip of his Colt. Benny emerged from the shadows, hunched and twitchy. His coat was patched at the elbows and 2 sizes too big. He was soaked. Benny's eyes darted like he expected the shadows to reach out and grab him. "You're late," Cutter said. Benny flinched. "I had to make sure I wasn't followed." "You always say that." "This time I mean it." Cutter gestured with his chin. "Talk." Benny stepped closer, voice low. "This is big, Cutter. Worth half a C note."
"You're moving up in the world, Benny. You've never squealed for more than $20 in your life."
Benny groaned. "Look, I need the dough to blow town. It's major info. If you don't think so, you pay nothing." Cutter thought for a moment, then said, "Deal. But it better be worth it." Benny sighed in relief. "There's a new player in town. Not from here. Not from anywhere I've ever heard of. They got gadgets, Cutter. Stuff that makes your Army issue 45 look like a toy." Cutter narrowed his eyes. "What kind of gadgets?" "Stuff that bends light. Stuff that makes people disappear. I saw a guy poof into nothing, Cutter. Just gone. No blood. No scream. Just a shadow and then nothing." Cutter's hand tightened on his Colt. "You sure it wasn't a trick? Some kind of con?" Benny shook his head. "I know what I saw, and I know they're now looking for me. I'm a hunted man." Cutter was about to press him when Benny's eyes widened. "They found me," he whispered. Cutter turned. 4 figures stepped from the alley. No faces, no voices, just movement and menace. gun barrels glinted in the rain. Cutter reached for his Colt. And then the world exploded in a white flash. A beam of light, brilliant and blinding, swallowed him whole. His feet left the ground. The city vanished beneath him. The last thing he saw was Benny screaming and the rain falling upward. Upside down, then. Nothing. Chapter 2. The Awakening. He woke on a cold metal floor. The air was dry and sterile, smelled like polished silver. His head was humming with a low vibration that buzzed in his teeth. The ceiling above him pulsed with blue light, like a heartbeat made of neon. He blinked against the brightness, his eyes adjusting slowly. A shape loomed over him. It was humanoid, mostly. Tall, metallic, with limbs that bent in too many directions and a face like the muffler on a roadster, with glowing yellow eyes. Its voice was a rasping blend of static and gravel. A robot. Human Detective Wade Cutter, it said. Welcome. You have been invited to do what you do best, solve murders. Cutter sat up slowly, his hand instinctively reaching for his gun. It wasn't there. Neither were his handcuffs or his badge, just the trench coat, damp and wrinkled, and the fedora sitting on the floor beside him. Where the hell am I? He growled. You are aboard the survey vessel Hulari, en route to the planet Illyria. Cutter blinked. You got 5 seconds to explain before I start breaking things. I am designated as Model JX488, the robot said. You may refer to me as you choose. Cutter stared. I guess I'll call you Willie, because just looking at you gives me the willies. The robot didn't smile, but seemed satisfied with the name. Willie it is, logged and recorded. Cutter shook his head. You still haven't fully explained what's going on. I have been assigned to bring you to our planet and assist you with your mission. Assist me with what mission? There have been murders, 17 to be exact. No suspects, no evidence, no precedent. You have been identified as a master of serial homicide resolution. Cutter stood, wobbling slightly. You kidnapped me to solve alien murders? Willie tilted his head. We prefer the term strategic expedient extraction. Cutter rubbed the scar above his right eye. I was just trying to meet a snitch. You are now the last hope of the Illyrian people. Cutter looked around the metal-walled chamber. This is a spaceship, right? Correct. Can I get a cup of Joe on this ship? Willie froze in confusion. Joe? Who's Joe? Cutter tossed his head back and prayed for patience. Coffee, hot, black, and thick enough to float a bullet in. You got any coffee on this ship? Willie paused. Coffee. Yes, I understand. I can synthesize a beverage with similar chemical properties. Bullets? No. Cutter nodded. If it's got caffeine in it, it'll be good enough. You can hold the bullets. Chapter 3. The Mission. The ship's interior was a maze of seamless chrome corridors and vibrating panels. Cutter followed Willie through the halls, shoes echoing on the metal floor. The robot moved with unsettling grace, its limbs adjusting mid-stride like a dancer made of pistons. Let me get this straight, Cutter said. Your people, aliens, whatever, have no crime, no violence, no idea how to handle a murder. So, you searched the universe and you abducted me. Willie nodded. Correct. Illyria is a pacifist society. We have no law enforcement, no weapons, and no concept of intentional harm. The Queen authorized your retrieval after the 17th unexplained death. 17? Cutter whistled. That's a serial killer's dream and a cop's nightmare. Indeed, the deaths occurred over the past 3 of your Earth's lunar cycles. All the victims were found lifeless, with no signs of trauma or struggle, no defensive wounds. Our medical science could not determine a cause. Cutter scratched his chin. And you think I can? You have solved 112 homicide cases. Your clearance rate is 94.7%. Only a detective on Mars has a better record. Cutter blinked in shock. So, why didn't you abduct him? Her. And we didn't think it would have been correct since she turned out to be the killer. That makes you the only logical choice. By default. You're pretty good at blowing smoke. You better check your oil, Willie, Cutter quipped. I have no oil, detective. Only integrated circuitry and laser optics, Willie replied. The robot stopped before a large viewing screen. Outside, stars streaked past like tracer rounds. In the distance, a red planet loomed, its twin suns casting a crimson glow. That's Illyria, Willie said. Cutter squinted. Looks like Earth with a sunburn. We will arrive in the landing zone shortly. You may wish to prepare. Prepare how? Willie handed him a small zippered bag. Inside was a fresh trench coat, identical to his own. Your current covering is not appropriate for our environment. This is a boosted replica. Cutter held it up. Feels lighter. It is woven with adaptive fibers and reinforced with solar reactive mesh. It is impervious to most ballistic impacts. Cutter stared. You made me a bulletproof trench coat. Yes, it is also resistant to plasma, gamma rays, acid, and hostile telekinetic forces. Cutter grinned. Now you're speaking my language. He immediately swapped his trench coat for the upgrade. Chapter 4. Through the Red Suns. The ship descended through Illyria's atmosphere like a silver arrow. Cutter stood at the viewport watching the twin red suns cast long shadows across the rocky landscape. The capital shimmered like a mirror, all chrome towers and windowless steel buildings. A thatched metal dome surrounded the entire city. Nice place, he muttered, if you like living inside a bird cage. Willie stood beside him. Illyria's architecture and protective dome are designed to reflect solar radiation. Our biological species evolved under intense sunlight. Most structures are built from reflective alloys. Cutter pulled his sunglasses from his coat pocket and slipped them on. Guess I'm not built for this much sunshine. The ship touched down on a landing platform that extended from a massive palace. The structure gleamed like molten silver, its spires twisting into the sky like frozen lightning. As they disembarked, a group of tall, hairless aliens awaited them. They wore little clothing, mostly scraps of shiny fabric, exposing intricate patterns etched into their skin, tattoos or birthmarks. Cutter couldn't tell. Their eyes were large and luminous, their expressions unreadable. Cutter tugged his coat tighter. Ever hear of pants? Willie ignored the comment. They are honored by your presence. You are the first human to set foot on Illyria. Hope I don't disappoint? The aliens stared at him, fascinated. His trench coat, his hat, his sunglasses, every detail seemed to mesmerize them. One reached out to touch the brim of his fedora, but stopped short, as if afraid it might bite. Cutter tipped the hat slightly. Easy, pal. It's just felt, not shark skin. They entered the palace where the air was cooler and the light softer. The walls pulsed with a gentle glow, like moonlight trapped in crystal. At the end of a long hall stood a floating throne, and on it sat the Queen. Chapter 5. The Queen's Plea. Queen Yala Tral was unlike any creature Cutter had ever seen. She was tall and slender, her skin a shimmering jade hue that shifted with the light. Her eyes were vast pools of violet, and her presence filled the room like music. She didn't speak, but her voice filled Cutter's mind, warm, melodic, and impossibly clear. Welcome, Wade Cutter of Earth. We are grateful for your arrival. Cutter removed his hat and sunglasses. He almost bowed, but his pride wouldn't let him. Instead, he said, "Ma'am, we are a people of peace. We have never known violence,
But now something stalks us. 17 of our citizens have died. We do not understand how or why.
Cutter nodded slowly. And you want me to find out?
You are our last hope. He looked around the throne room. Dozens of aliens watched him, their expressions a mix of awe and fear. He felt like a museum exhibit. I'll need a free hand, full access to the bodies, the crime scenes, and I'll need someone who can translate all this psychic talk. Willie stepped forward. I shall act as your guide or deputy. Cutter looked at the Queen. I'll do what I can, but I wasn't exactly asked nicely. The Queen's voice softened. We regret the method of your retrieval, but we had no other choice. Cutter sighed. Story of my life. Chapter 6. The 17. The medical facility was an antiseptic-looking tower of glass and steel, perched on the edge of a crystalline lake. Inside, the air was cool and laced with unknown chemical smells. Unseen machinery hummed with soft tones that reminded Cutter of a hospital elevator that never stopped moving. Willie led him through a corridor lined with glowing panels with alien silhouettes printed on them. This is the Center for Biological Harmony, he said. It serves as both recuperative hospital and research institute. Looks like the place where they make rubber monsters for B-horror movies, Cutter muttered. They entered a chamber filled with stasis tubes, tall cylindrical pods filled with a faintly glowing fluid. Inside each one floated a Illyrian, perfectly preserved, perfectly still. These are the victims, Willie said, 17 in total, all found in isolated locations, no signs of trauma, no known causes of death. Cutter stepped closer to one of the tubes. The alien inside looked peaceful, almost asleep. You sure they're dead? They exhibit no neural activity, no brain waves, no metabolic function. By all definitions, they are deceased. Cutter turned to the hovering physician, a tall Illyrian with a lattice of silver markings across his scalp. You the doc? I am Zelvarn, the alien communicated, his voice entering Cutter's mind like a sharp blade. I have overseen the examinations of all 17. I'll need your reports. Zelvarn stepped forward and placed a hand on Cutter's temple. Whoa, hey! A flood of images, data, and sensations poured into Cutter's mind. Autopsies, energy scans, psychic impressions. It was like being hit by a freight train made of math and nightmares. He staggered back, clutching his head. Next time, just hand me a clipboard. Willie steadied him. Illyrians communicate through direct mental transfer. It is more efficient. Yeah, well, I like my brain like my eggs, unscrambled. He sat down on a nearby bench, breathing hard. The data was still sorting itself out in his head, images of the victim's final moments, strange energy signatures, and a recurring sensation of green and cold. Not physically cold, emotional, like something had drained the warmth from their souls. Cutter looked up. I need to see the crime scenes, the places where they died. Chapter 7. The Pattern. The first crime scene was a maintenance bay on the outskirts of a spaceport. The place was dark, cavernous, and silent. Cutter's shoes echoed on the metal floor as he stepped inside, sunglasses shielding his eyes from the occasional flicker of red sunlight through the high windows. Willie followed close behind. This facility is used to sterilize returning spacecraft and supply transports. The process requires complete darkness to prevent solar contamination. Cutter knelt beside a faint outline on the floor, an impression left behind by one of the victims. You said all 17 worked in sanitation? Yes, all were responsible for cleaning. They decontaminated vessels that returned from off-world trade routes. Cutter stood and looked around. So, They were the first ones to step inside after a ship came back. Correct. He visited 2 more sites. Each one was the same, dark, isolated, and eerily quiet. No signs of a struggle, no blood, just a lingering sense of absence. At the 3rd site, he paused. Something moved in the corner of his vision. A flicker, a ripple in the shadows. He turned, hand instinctively reaching for a weapon that wasn't there. "Willie," he said quietly, "you see that?" The robot's sensors whirred. "I detect a thermal anomaly." A green mass slithered from the shadows, rising like a wave of slime. It lunged. Cutter dove aside. The thing struck Willie, splashing across his chest. The robot staggered, sparks flying. Cutter scrambled to his feet, heart pounding. The thing gurgled, retreating into the darkness. Willie's voice crackled. "I am compromised." Cutter grabbed his trench coat, tore it off, and scraped the goop from Willie's chassis. He bundled it in the coat and ran to the nearest exit. Outside, the red suns blazed overhead. Wade flung the coat into the light. The goop screamed. It ignited instantly, bursting into a sickly green flame. The smell was like burning rubber and ozone. Cutter stared at the ashes. Red sunlight kills it. Willie's systems rebooted with a hum and a click. That was unpleasant. Cutter nodded slowly. "I think I know what we're dealing with." Chapter 8. Fire and Revelation. Back at the medical center, Cutter paced the observation deck while Willie ran diagnostics on his damaged systems. "It's a parasite," Cutter said, hitching rides on returning ships, hiding in the dark, feeding on the cleaners. Zelvon stood nearby, arms folded. "We detected no foreign organisms in or on the victims. Because it's smart, it hides, lives in the shadows, and when the host dies, it goes dormant." Willie's voice buzzed. "The sample you destroyed exhibited photophobic behavior. It cannot survive in direct sunlight." Cutter turned to the doctor. "I want all 17 stasis tubes moved outside, into the sunlight." Zelvarn hesitated. "That is highly irregular." "Irregular's my specialty. Besides, the Queen said I had free rein with my investigation." The doctor relented. Within the hour, the tubes were wheeled onto a sunlit terrace. Cutter stood back, arms crossed, watching. As the tubes opened, the effect was immediate. Green goop erupted from the bodies, shrieking as it hit the light. Flames burst across the terrace. The parasites writhed, screamed, and disintegrated. Ashes. And then, the victims gasped. One by one, they sat up, blinking in confusion. Alive. Free. Cutter exhaled slowly. 17 Lazaruses. Willie stepped beside him. "You have saved them." Cutter lit a cigarette with shaking hands. "Let's hope it sticks." Chapter 9. The Queen's Judgment. The throne room was silent as Cutter finished his report. He stood before the Queen, trench coat scorched, sunglasses back in place. Willie stood beside him, patched but functional. "Your ships brought back more than cargo," Wade said. "These things, parasites, hitched rides, they infected your people, lived inside them, killed them slowly." The Queen's voice filled his mind. "And the light destroyed them." "Yeah, they hate it. It's deadly to them. That's why they struck in the dark." The gathered Illyrians murmured telepathically, their thoughts brushing against Cutter's like wind through tall grass. "You have done what we could not," the Queen said. "You have restored life and hope." She stood, descending from her throne. "As a reward, I would offer you my hand in union." Cutter blinked. "You want to marry me?" She tilted her head. "Maybe, but no. You are aesthetically unfortunate." "You mean ugly?" Cutter chuckled. Story of my life. Then perhaps you would accept another reward, JX488. The robot stepped forward. He calls me Willie, Your Highness, and I'd be honored. Cutter looked at Willie. You sure you want to come back to Earth? It's not exactly robot-friendly. I have seen your world. It is quite peculiar. I find it intriguing. Cutter grinned. You'll fit right in. Chapter 10. The Return. The ship rose from Illyrio's surface, slicing through the atmosphere like a blade. Cutter sat in the command chair, staring out at the stars. He was snug in his latest modified trench coat, colt back where it belonged, along with his handcuffs and badge. You sure this wormhole time portal thing works? He asked. Willie nodded. We will return to the exact moment of your extraction. No time will have passed. Convenient. The ship shimmered, space folding around it. Light bent, time twisted. And then they were back. The alley, the rain, the ambushers. Cutter stepped from the beam of light, trench coat flaring. The three figures turned, startled. He reached for his gun, then remembered it may not work. The Colt fired bolts of lightning in rapid succession. The thugs disintegrated. Willie stepped beside him. I made some upgrades. Cutter holstered the weapon. Remind me to buy you a case of turtle wax. Why would I want to wax a turtle? Willie asked. Forget it. Back at the homicide division, Cutter propped his feet on his desk. Willie poured him a glass of something amber and smoky. If anyone comes in, Wade said, pretend to be a coat rack. Willie moved obediently to the corner, placed his arms outstretched. Cutter lit a cigarette, stared out the window, and muttered, 17 lives saved. Almost married a queen. Not a bad day's work. Chapter 11. The Badge. The badge sat on Cutter's desk like a relic from another life. It was scratched, dulled at the edges, the number barely legible from years of wear. It had been pinned to his chest when he walked into his first homicide. It had been there when he pulled a kid out of a burning tenement. It had been there when he buried his partner. Now it felt heavier. He picked it up, turned it over in his hand. It wasn't just a symbol anymore. It was a bridge between worlds, between lives, between the man he had been and the one he was becoming. Willie stood silently in the corner, still in coat rack mode. Cutter glanced at him. You can relax. No one's coming in. Willie lowered his arms. I find the posture meditative. Cutter chuckled. You're a strange one. I am adapting to your example. Cutter leaned back in his chair. You ever wonder why your planet picked me? You have a unique combination of intuition, experience, and moral flexibility. Gee, thanks. Willie tilted his head. You are also statistically more likely to survive high-risk encounters. Now that sounds more like it. He clipped the badge back onto the inside of his coat. It didn't shine, but it didn't need to. It was earned, and now, maybe borrowed. Chapter 12. The Whisper. It started with a whisper. Not a sound exactly, more like a feeling, a pressure behind the eyes, a ripple in the air. Cutter sat up in bed, heart pounding. The room was dark. The city outside his window droned with distant sirens and a neon sign's buzz. Willie stood in the corner, powered down but alert. You feel that? Cutter asked. Willie's eyes lit up. Yes, a psychic disturbance. Faint but present. Cutter rubbed his temples. I thought we left the weird stuff behind. Willie turned toward the window. It is not from this city. Cutter stood, pulling on his coat. Then where? Willie hesitated. It is not from this planet. Cutter stared at him. You're telling me something followed us? Or something was already here? The whisper grew louder, not in volume but in presence, like a shadow stretching across the mind. Cutter grabbed his holstered gun and strapped it on. Looks like we've got unfinished business. Chapter 13. The Signal. Willie traced the disturbance to an abandoned warehouse near the docks. The place had been condemned years ago, but the power was still on. Inside, the air was thick with dust and static. Cutter moved cautiously, gun drawn, Willie's sensors scanning ahead. "There," Willie said, pointing to a console in the corner. It was obviously alien, sleek, buzzing, etched with alien symbols Cutter thought may have been from Illyria. A beacon. "It's broadcasting," Willie said. "A signal, low frequency, psychic resonance." "To who?" Willie's eyes narrowed. "To others." Cutter stepped closer. The console pulsed and the whisper surged. Images flashed in his mind, stars, ships, a worlds conquered one by one, and the earth covered in shadow. "I think it's a distress call," he said, "or a warning." Willie nodded. The parasites were not alone. Cutter stared at the console. "Then we've got a bigger problem." Chapter 14. The Decision. Back at police headquarters, Cutter sat in silence. The console had been destroyed, but the message had already been sent. Somewhere out there, something had heard it. He looked at Willie. "You think they'll come?" Willie didn't answer right away. "Yes, and if they do, this planet is not ready." Cutter nodded. "Then we get it ready." He stood, grabbed his coat, and holstered his gun. The badge gleamed faintly in the light. "You sticking around?" Willie tilted his head. "I have no other places to be." "Then you're my partner now." "Can I have a gun?" "Sure." Willie paused. "Do I get a badge?" Cutter grinned. "We'll see. Maybe I can scrounge up an old Cadillac hood ornament from police impound." Chapter 15. The Next Case. The phone rang. Cutter picked it up. "Cutter." A voice on the other end, shaky. "This is Jackson Central. There's been a murder, the warehouse district, but it's nuts." Wade's eyes narrowed. "Define nuts." "The body's still standing." He hung up, grabbed his coat, and turned to Willie. "Let's go." Willie followed. "Shall I bring my gun?" "Bring it and hope you won't need it." They stepped into the night, the city waiting. Somewhere out there, something was stirring. And Wade Cutter, detective, war hero, interstellar savior, and his alien robot sidekick were on the case. Chapter 16. The Standing Corpse. The scene was cordoned off with yellow tape, but the crowd pressed close, murmuring like a hive of anxious bees. Cutter ducked under the tape, Willie at his side. The crowd parted, stunned by the sight of the robot. The pair stepped into the alley behind a boarded-up warehouse. The body was still standing. A man in a workman's blue jumpsuit, eyes wide, mouth slightly open. No wounds, no blood, just stillness, like someone had hit pause on his life. Cutter circled the body slowly. "Rigor mortis doesn't do this." Willie scanned the air. No pulse, no respiration, neural activity, faint. "He's not dead." "Not yet." Cutter leaned in. The man's eyes twitched. A tear rolled down his cheek. "He's trapped in there," Cutter said, "inside his own body." Willie nodded. "A psychic lock. Crude but effective." Cutter looked around. This wasn't a murder. It was a message. Chapter 17. The Visitor. They found the second one 2 hours later. A woman frozen mid-step at a bus stop. Same wide eyes, same silent scream, same tear. Cutter stood over her, fists clenched. "Someone's playing games. They've got us on a scavenger hunt." Willie's sensors flared. "There is a presence nearby."
Cutter turned. A figure stepped from the shadows, tall, cloaked, face hidden beneath a hood of shifting light. "You are the destroyer, the one who burned them," the figure said. Its voice was layered, like multiple people speaking at once. Cutter raised his gun. "You're not from around here, are you? Put your hands up, or tentacles, or whatever you've got." The figure ignored the command. "You interfered. You destroyed our scouts. They were on a killing spree. They were preparing. For what?" The figure tilted its head. "For the harvest." Then it vanished before Cutter could zap it with his modified handgun. Chapter 18, The Warning. Back at his office, Cutter paced. "They're not parasites," he said. "They're invaders. The ones on Illyria were just the first wave." Willie nodded. "The standing victims are warnings. Crude psychological warfare. They're softening us up." Cutter looked at the map on the wall. Red pins marking the victims, the sightings, the whispers. "They're already here." Willie stepped forward. "We must alert your authorities." Cutter shook his head. "They'd never believe us. Not until it was too late." "Then what do we do?" Cutter picked up his badge. "We fight." Chapter 19. The Fire Line. The next week was a blur. Cutter and Willie tracked the invaders throughout the city. Abandoned buildings, sewer tunnels, power stations. They found more victims, some still alive, some not. They fought in silence and shadow. Willie's own lightning gun hummed in unison with Cutter's. Willie's exterior was scratched and nicked in places. Cutter's trench coat was tattered and burned at the edges. His fedora had a laser hole in its crown. The city never knew how close it came. They found the last nest beneath an old observatory, dozens of pods, dozens of whispers. Cutter lit a flare and tossed it in. The fire roared. The invaders screamed. He didn't look back. Chapter 20. Epilogue. The Borrowed Badge. The city was quiet again. Cutter sat on the roof of the police station, cigarette glowing in the dark. Willie stood beside him, watching the stars. "They'll be back," Cutter said. "Yes." "We'll be ready." Willie turned. "I am sorry. You never asked for any of this." "No," Cutter said, "but maybe I was made for it." He pulled out his badge, turned it over in his hand. It still felt heavy, still felt borrowed. But now it felt right. He clipped it back to the inside of his coat, stood and looked out over the city of angels. "Let's get to work."